Yeah, it's a really interesting problem, right? I mean, you might say that Facebook has some similar elements to it, right? Basically, Facebook, you're the product on Facebook, and it's not really immediately apparent what the consequences of that are.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I don't really have an alternative to Facebook anyway. So what am I going to do? Am I not going to do it? Would I pay to use Facebook? Probably not. So people are kind of happy to have this thing that they have to use because there isn't really another equivalent to it, and do it for free. And what's the trade-off they're making? I mean, it's really hard to say. There's a lot of, obviously, I don't know if you saw that. What was they did that Netflix documentary on
Oh
uh,
right. I don't know. I know what you're talking
yeah,
about though. Just basically about how social media is spying on everybody.
yeah, and like just kind of the negative consequences that come from how basically the algorithms are designed to give you dopamine hits to
Yeah.
basically addict you to the platform. And this is essentially an unpriced negative externality. We're not really clear on what is that worth. What is it's kind of like when people started smoking and the cigarette companies were making all sorts of money and people are getting sick. What does that cost? Well, it's really hard to say what the cost is here. So yeah, that's really interesting. I have this, like, I think Bitcoin represents something that is quite interesting in that you have essentially some altruistic actors, and there are some altruistic actors out there who built a technology that then they themselves were not really benefiting from. And you have to think that if Microsoft is building something, they're only doing it to benefit Microsoft. Like, it just won't get past the board. Be like, hey, let's build this, altruistic technology that's going out there. It's like if they build something, it's cost benefit analysis, they're trying to profit off it. And that set of incentives is not really great for the individuals at the other end necessarily. They might still benefit. It's not to say there can't be a net positive. There can be, but there's that trade-off. I think one of the things that's cool about the complexity and scale side of it is that today it's like, you just think about it. Okay, Satoshi hypothetically was one person, right? For kind of the best of our knowledge, it's probably one person. And he created this technology, which now, I mean, it hit $1 trillion market cap. It's, affects, I don't know, hundreds of millions of people, lots and lots of people, right? And imagine like how great that was, just like the effects of scale that one person can have. So that's kind of an optimistic thought process that one person can build something that can have that much outreach. And so it probably doesn't take that many people who are thinking altruistically. I mean, I tend to trust and I tend to like Vitalik as an example, right? To me, he strikes me as that type of guy who he's not really too concerned about his personal profit. And if he was, he probably would have taken the Shiba coins that he had and, cashed in instead of rug pulling it and, doing all of that. So there are some people out there who's like, hey, this is good. They're like actually just trying to do good things. And obviously those people can build things that can scale up a lot. And because of the fact that the incentives aren't designed to promote the interests of a particular group, it almost is more likely to get a larger adoption by many other groups. So yeah, it's really interesting. I'm going to be curious to find out how things go. I think that we're going to see a lot of innovation, and it's really uncertain. But I do think that your point about how you can kind of put this centralized layer on top of it and kind of take advantage of this thing that was supposed to be open is concerning. And it makes it a little bit of a question of saying, okay, like what are the most fundamental things that we need to safeguard as a society and as humanity in order to kind of put those limitations on people? Like, I think that looking at Bitcoin as an example, so I deal with banking a lot. Banking is becoming an atrocious nightmare. Banks impede business. They don't facilitate it anymore. For the most part, like, I think that having a bank account today should be a basic human right, because how do you operate in the modern world without having a bank account? I don't think that anyone should be allowed to freeze your account. I don't think they should be able to stop transactions. I think that should be like your ability to deposit, send and receive money should be absolute under all circumstances. Maybe you're doing it for terrorist financing. Maybe you're doing it for, your money laundering or something. Okay, great. Like, then it's public information that can be reported. The courts should deal with that. The police should deal with that. That's not the business of the banks to say, hey, listen, you can or can't send this, because you're basically denying somebody's right to exist. They can't earn a living. They just can't exist without that today. And Bitcoin facilitates that actually pretty well as being permissionless. Even if somebody else can see it, even if somebody can, find ways of, playing in other roles, at least nobody can take away your access to your coins, and nobody can prevent you from sending a transaction or receiving a transaction. You can, somebody else might not accept a transaction from you. That's a whole other conversation, but that's up to them.